You're listening to Parkside Podcast, Voices of Our Landscape, where we talk with the people shaping the parks, trails, and outdoor spaces of Monroe County, Pennsylvania. I'm Autumn Hawthorne, Executive Director of Stroud Region Open Space and Recreation Commission, and in this series, we're sharing the stories of leadership, community, and the lasting connection between people and place. This podcast is part of our local celebration of America250 PA Monroe County, leading up to the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. As part of that celebration, we invite you to take on the 250 for 250 challenge. Log 250 miles of walking, biking, paddling, and exploring in our Monroe County parks and open spaces between now and July 2026. To start logging miles, visit stroudrec.org/250 for 250. Today's guest knows this landscape well and has helped shape it from many different angles. Let's dive into our conversation. Today on the Parkside Podcast, we welcome Kelly Lewis, Borough Manager of East Stroudsburg, dedicated public servant and proud native of this very community. Kelly has worn many hats, from County Controller to State Representative to President of several tech and infrastructure organizations, but his heart has always stayed close to home and close to the land. A champion of innovation and efficiency, he is also a passionate advocate for public spaces like the Levee Loop Trail, which blends our region's natural beauty with active recreation. Today, we'll talk about how his career has intersected with public spaces, community health, and the preservation and future of East Stroudsburg's outdoor assets. So Kelly, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
It's good to be here.
So you grew up here in East Stroudsburg.
I'm as towny as they can come. I'm a 12th generation, and my family's lived in East Stroudsburg, I think, for 5 generations.
Holy cow. So how did the landscape and the outdoor spaces here shape your experience?
Well, from the youngest age possible, I know I came to Dansbury Park as an infant and was in the pool and grew up around the pool and the playground equipment. I played football out in the outfield with ESYA and played Teen League baseball on Dansbury Park's field and ESYA basketball. I mean, I think I was involved in a lot of sports growing up, Little League baseball, and then, in my older age now, I'm the big champion of the Levee Loop. I walked out a lot, and I was recovering from some health issues. Doing the Levee Loop was a big part of my recovery, so I'm a big champion and got involved maybe a couple years ago with Tara Green's golf course and trying to keep that going, and that's been going great. That's how I met you.
Yes.
And that's been going great. And then somebody talked me into being borough manager. I thought I was going to retire. But this has been great, working for my hometown, getting to remember all the streets and who lived in all the different streets and figuring out how to fix some of the big issues. And today I was driving around looking at all the places that are on our things so I could actually see some things that we're doing, because every week something new comes in. So it's been very gratifying. It's a lot of work, trying to not to get too many people mad at me, but it's been going well.
Just over 6 months now?
We're up to 9 months. I started in September.
Almost a year.
Almost a year.
You're getting a lot done for that first year.
Well, we're trying to, and one thing, we just had a nice celebration with all of our employees and celebrated the retirement of Cal Miller, another longtime resident. I was joking with him how we played 5th grade basketball together. But we had a nice all-hands meeting, little food, gathering, and getting everybody together. We have a really good team at the Borough, and a lot of people so dedicated to making the Borough better. We just did some projects, like for the first time we did a excavation project on Elk Street that came out real nice. And we're going to do a lot of paving this summer. So the borough's going to be doing some paving for the first time. And we also have a big contract. We'll do close to $2 million worth of paving this summer. And I know it's probably the number one thing since I've been involved with the borough is like, can you pave my street? So.
Yeah, everybody wants to get around a little easier. So speaking of getting around, you mentioned the Levee Loop. I know it's a favorite of yours. So what do you see about the Levee Loop that makes it so special and contributing to the well-being of our community?
Well, one thing, when we were young, the levee was such a daunting task. We had to run hills on it on the football team. So you'd make your little paths through the weeds, and by the end of the summer, you'd be like, hey, we made those pathways. So And it seems so big. I mean, Broadhead Creek and looking over to our arch rival Stroudsburg, it seems so far away. And it's such a beautiful stretch. And we never could walk that. It wasn't set up that way. You could walk a little bit around Dansbury Park, but to be able to do the full circle and walk through Stroudsburg and all the permission that people got over the years, like going through the Moose Lodge property and other private properties, it's something that people dreamed of 25 years ago, and to see it come to fruition is so cool. And there's like the Frisbee thing at the by the Yetter Park, and like it's really great to see so many people worked so hard to get it done, and then gratifying to walk it and see deer, when all kinds of wildlife, see bald eagles flying down the creek, seeing deer. So I really enjoy it. I brag about it all the time because not too many places have stuff like this. I mean, we're very unique. Sometimes we take it for granted. We're right next to the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area. There's so many waterfalls nearby. I'm a big waterfall hiker. So I just think it's underappreciated, but I really appreciate what you guys do. And I'm looking forward to more trails. So our Borough Council President, Sonia Wolbert, said, hey, we have a comprehensive plan with all these trail extensions. And I'm like, really? So I've been pouring into that. We've opened up one, and we look forward to open up some more. Anything else we can do? Because I think this area is so set up to be, it's been a tourism area for like 140 years, ever since train service came out, from New York and Philadelphia. So it's great to see us expanding the recreation industry, and it's a huge industry. I think it's close to a $20 billion industry in Pennsylvania, and we're situated so well. All Restaurant Row on Crystal Street. We have close to 50 restaurants in the borough. And I don't know if everybody fully appreciates and pinches themselves on the cheek. Like, we've got a lot of good stuff here, and I'm just, my role is to try and make it better.
Yeah, we had some truly visionary people who set aside the open space for our parks, who made sure that levee that got put in place for the 1955 flood was then turned into a recreational asset. People thought ahead, and that doesn't happen everywhere, and we have to be really grateful that it did. And now we're the stewards to make sure that it keeps going and keeps getting better.
So I probably have, hopefully 5 years, maybe, if I can do it that long, to try and make a lasting impression and put some good plans in place and find the next generation of worker bees that are going to make it all happen for the next 25 years. So that's exciting to me, to put some institutional planning in place and some systems in place that are going to keep making this better.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of putting things in place to help the community, you have worked on large-scale health initiatives, like expanding access to AEDs. How do you see Parks and Recreation as contributing to public health? So,
one, recreation is so big and important to people's health, and the Levee Loop is relatively flat, which, a lot of trails, especially around here, go up and down mountains and valleys. So this is flat. It's easy for people to get their rehab, and it worked for me. I could barely walk 200 or 300 yards after my one procedure. So doing the thing, and then my big joke was doing the Provoznik, because John Provoznik, our borough solicitor, and I used to compete on how fast we could do the Levee Loop. I misheard him. I thought he said you had to do it in 75 minutes.
And for our listeners, the full Levee Loop is about 4.5 miles. It's a pretty good.
So I was hustling one night. I started too late. I thought, it only takes an hour. And I started too late, so I was walking in the dark. And that was when I broke 80 minutes because it was so dark. I was walking pretty fast.
Pretty good. Yeah. You're really moving.
But I think it is good. We can't do enough in setting up programs to help people access our parks and recreation facilities with the swimming pools and other things like that. And I think we're really just getting started and figuring out how to expand these programs. And we got to fix a lot of the gym equipment for the kids. And I've been looking at proposals for that. But I'm anxious to see how we go forward. I think we definitely need to work out. Well, we've got so many I think 3 big health providers in the region, in the county. So working with them Jefferson Health now owns and operates Pocono Hospital, so they're a gigantic organization. So, and we're having a meeting with them in the next 2 weeks. So if we can figure out ways to work with them, they need healthier. We all want to be healthier, and they've got programs for that, and the health insurance providers have programs for that. So we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also helped lead infrastructure efforts at the state level. How can small towns like East Stroudsburg use those lessons from the state to improve our parks, our trails, and our green infrastructure?
Yep, growing greener was real big when I was in the House, and it was great to work on those. And when I was in the lobbying world, we did a big push for growing greener bonds to get out and do our water and sewer infrastructures. And one thing I'm a champion of is finding things we can go for grants and then applying for them. Because the easiest way not to get a grant is to not apply. So the first step is finding a problem that you need to solve and putting a dollar amount to it, and then getting a grant application. And we really are blessed with a great group of state delegation with Tara Probst and Rosemary Brown. They both went to East Stroudsburg High School. They know East Stroudsburg like me, and they're very anxious to help us. And we've already been bearing the fruit of their good work on behalf of the borough, some of the first grants that we've gotten. And that's just the beginning. I know we're going to get a lot more things. We want to get the governor up here on some big thing in East Stroudsburg as soon as we have a big thing to get him here for. But that's what we're working on. And infrastructure for us is going to be a big thing because our infrastructure is 50 to 100 years old. Our water and sewer infrastructure, our stormwater, was an emerging big problem. So we'll ask for all the help that we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned our public works department in East Stroudsburg Borough, who's fantastic. They're very focused on getting those roads fixed up this year. But there's a lot of underlying things that we're going to need that help with as well. So East Stroudsburg it's got a rich natural history and a really strong industrial history. So how do you see the borough preserving that legacy, but also planning for future growth in our recreation?
So one of my big ideas is we need to have a museum or a discovery center on the rich history of East Stroudsburg. This has been a long time industrial center because we uniquely have the train running through the middle of the town. Not too many towns our size have 7 railroad crossings. So, and now some of that legacy's all gone. I mean, I was driving through a couple places, and in my youth, these were big factories. People forget that whole Walmart area was a big factory, not too long ago. So it'd be nice for us to have a museum or a discovery center to tell that history, to share that history, something fun to do, and get people to kind of slow down. And also then, because the park and rec is so close to the Crystal Street area, to get them to come for a day versus just coming for dinner. Or just coming to the Levee Loop, they could go grab coffee downtown.
So how do you think that we can balance the economic development with the infrastructure needs and then also protecting the open space and the natural beauty that we have here?
I think we have a good balance now. And like I said, we got a rich history with recreation. And these trails really weren't here when 50 years ago for me. I had to do the math and say, yeah, it's been 50 years. But there's so much a rich history now of recreation in the Twin Boroughs. So it'll be interesting to see how we can grow that, and then also figure out what the next economic boost is going to be for the region. I mean, we've been a tourism area for, like I said, close to 150 years, post-Civil War. And sometimes I think we do. I mean, we obviously have a visitors bureau and all that, but there's a lot of things to keep pushing, one of which is going to be recreation. And the other thing that I've been working on is the East Stroudsburg Sports. We're going to have a meeting on July 9th, because I really think that having youth sports is so important to the multi-generational engagement with the borough. And grandparents and parents love to see their kids get involved, and with sports, with the arts, and recreational activities. And anything we could do to drive that engagement is going to be good for the region and also good for our Parks and Rec system. so many people move here, they don't know everything that's available to them. And one of my things is to make sure we're going to, always try to be the best hometown that we can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So we keep speaking about history, and you've mentioned growing up here at Dansbury Park. Do you have a favorite memory from Dansbury Park?
So many. Junior year, we played baseball here, for the Dansbury Park, and, getting some hits on the varsity baseball team when we had such a great team. Probably a great memory. And I really think ESY football was a big thing for us. And back then you're like, oh man, we got to run the levee, or we called it the dike back then, run the dike. And now when I walk on the Levee Loop, I'm like, man, those were tough times as a kid to run the hills, but they were the things that you remember, and they build up your resilience and got you in shape and that type of thing. So I do remember that. The pool, so many memories at the pool, meeting up with your friends, because summer break and you're not seeing everybody every day. And we got on that ancient tool called the telephone. Hey, let's go down and we'll see you at 10 o'clock or whatever at the Dansbury Park. That was always good in the junior high days, I guess, before you could drive. So those were good memories.
So how has the park changed over time, or how has it stayed the same as you've come back and visited?
Well, definitely walking through the pool, when that little section still seems like it's 100 years old. So, and I remember Coach Christian always running the pool. Back then, and I don't know if it's, the teachers used to run the pool in the summer, and Coach Christian, our football coach, was always there and always telling us little stories and jokes, and so many kids from town worked at the pool. My two younger brothers worked at the pool, for multiple summers. So it was funny to walk through there. The day before I started at the Borough, I went down and said hi to everybody at the pool, and that seemed the same. Some of the playground equipment still seems the same. I'm like, how long can this stuff last? Mm-hmm. But that thing that spins around. The
merry-go-round. Yes, the nice metal old-fashioned merry-go-round.
I can't tell you how many times the goal of our family was to try and get other kids on there and spin it so fast they'd scream to get off. So we really worked hard to get that thing to spin as fast as it possibly could. We had good times. I had 5 other siblings, so we could get on that spinner thing and get it going. And we had a lot of gatherings at the pavilion, and that's really a nice asset. We had a lot of sports picnics there, the end of the season. We had church events down there, so it was really nice to see that that's still there. The things that you take for granted, because so many times you come to your hometown 50 years later and everything's gone. And truly a lot of things have changed, but Crystal Street's better than ever. I mean, Crystal Street's never been this good. Even in the biggest day of the railroad, it was never as good as this. So that's really nice to see. And I really think that Crystal Street's still 5 years, 10 years from its peak. And we're working on parking and all kinds of different fun things to see where we can take it. I think it's going to be a huge, huge thing. And a lot of restaurants in the surrounding area are going to benefit.
And the Borough did a great job. You mentioned earlier jumping on that short trail section between Crystal Street and the rest of town was identified years ago as a priority trail connection.
Yeah. And we have 5 parking lots around Crystal Street. We're working on a project with a group from ESU, and that's really a big thing for me. I love building relationships between organizations. So we've been working with the high school and working a lot with ESU, and they've got this digital design group, and we're working on a way to better identify where the parking areas are and then explain with bigger signs to tell people, if you park in this parking lot, here's how you get to Crystal Street, here's how you get to Washington Street and other different places, so that a little bit more information, because I think 20 years ago everybody from town was the one who went to restaurants. Now we have people from all over coming into our restaurants, and we need to better identify how to get to and from parking lots. And so, and then the big one way on Crystal Street, So that was something I was pretty interested in when they did do that, because I know they talked about it for 50 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a really nice pedestrian asset for the street.
So that kind of happened right before I started, and we're still figuring out how to make that work. Mm-hmm. Lots of people want to double park, and I hear about that every day. and we've been doing some, enforcement on that, and it really makes people upset. Like, they feel like they still have a right to double park, and we'll see. We got to figure out ways to make some of these things work. I'm a big fan of compliance, and then get to defiance, and then get the fines. I don't, if you're not going to pay attention to our rules, get to that defiance stage, too many, 98% of the boroughs following the rules. So you don't want to get there, but when it becomes defiance, we got to take it down to fines. I don't know how else to get, the compliance.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned Terra Greens. Let's talk a little bit about the golf course and what your involvement with getting the nonprofit started was, and how it's going.
So I guess that was March or 2023, maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe 2022. I forget the year, but I did get asked to go to a borough council meeting, which I hadn't been to one in 20 years, and so I went to the meeting and found out that they were planning on closing it down. I worked with two other individuals, one of whom's my dear mother and a good friend, and we formed a nonprofit to get it off the ground, and we applied for 501(c) status and got that like in 45 days. I don't know how that got through so fast.
That's quick.
But we had set up a 501(c)(3). We worked on getting the lease and worked with the Borough and Stroud Regional Open Space Commission to get that all done. And the blessing is Brian Zukowski was the longtime golf superintendent, and he came back, and as you know, the grass was close to 3 feet tall, and you can't cut grass more than 50% at a time, so it took some time. But we got the course sometime in June, July, got it open in October so that everybody could golf in that last year in 2023. And really the community's just fallen back in love with this place. I mean, I always loved golfing there as a kid because it was the first place I golfed with my father and my stepfather and other friends. And I see that happening when you work there and you see a father and son or a father and daughter go out or a mother and son go out. It's pretty cool because you're like, hey, that was me, 45 years ago. So that, and I guess I didn't realize that course started when the year I was born in 1964.
Oh, wow.
So we were just celebrating our 60th anniversary last year, and just so many people are involved that I grew up with, and that's really fun. And this morning I was talking with four people that are involved in the course that I've known for 40 some years. So it's pretty fun, and I really think it's a great asset. I think we could do more. There's still some property over there that we could figure out. I think I get asked about pickleball probably once a week, probably like you.
Yeah.
So, hope springs eternal. And then somebody just presented something about a all facilities court where there's kind of like all kinds of fun equipment to play on. I don't know if you've seen this, but I just got pitched on that a couple days ago. So I'm like, that looks pretty cool. So I don't know where we put that at Terra Greens or somewhere down here. But it has all kinds of lifting kind of machines and stuff. Did I hit something?
Gotcha.
But that looks interesting, and something new.
Yeah, those fitness courts are up and coming, I think, and there's a lot of grants available for them.
There's grants. I guess there's 20 of them in municipalities in Pennsylvania already. I had never seen them, so that was all.
They're neat.
Pretty cool to me.
Yeah.
So again, I'm still learning so much about how municipalities work. And I did get a chance to go down to Hershey and to a conference on the Borough Association and see what's going on with so many other municipalities. So we can pick up some good ideas, and we've got great assets already. We just need to keep making them better and figure out how to get more engagement.
Yeah, and we're, as part of the park system, we're going to be going into a comprehensive planning process over the next year and a half or so to identify all of the amenities that we already have in the parks, what we need to update, we need to fix, and then look for, what's missing. What does the community want to see us have throughout our 26 parks that we don't have yet? So now's the time to dream big and then, like you said, go after that grant funding to get it done.
Yep, and the other great thing that we have is municipalities that work together. And this is very unique. I don't know if people appreciate that we've got regional police, and we also have a regional park and rec system. And it's great to see Stroudsburg and Stroud Township working together with East Stroudsburg. And I was there at the beginning talking about regional police way back when. And it's so nice to see how it works now and so responsive to the borough. And I know they are with Stroudsburg and Stroud. But I see a lot of intermunicipal participation in the future to go after the big grants with the three municipalities. And, of course, I'll always compete against Stroudsburg. It's in my DNA. So it is a great inspiration for me. If Stroudsburg has something, we got to try and find something better. And I know over at their borough council and stuff, they laugh about it too. And, also I got to compete with Hamilton Township because my good friend Buddy Buzzard is out there. So anything he comes up with, we have to do better. So he'll appreciate that and laugh. But
when I started with the park system, I was actually told you got to watch out for the old football rivalries. That's what'll get you.
So it's all fun and games now.
Yeah.
The Elks used to host the huddle before the Turkey Day games, and it was always great to see the guys from Stroudsburg and tell the tall tales and all that kind of thing. So, but I see that as a big advantage, and I don't think we do enough with regionalization. And maybe there's more things that we can do in the future to work together. But I'm really glad we have this park system this way because it's hard to be a municipality and get grants and such. And it's much easier when it's a bigger organization, and we can spread the cost among 3 municipalities. So it's a blessing that it's there. It's why we have the Levee Loop. If it wasn't combined, it would be hard to do that kind of thing. And to walk all the way down from the 447 bridge. What's at the very top?
Pinebrook Park.
Pinebrook, yep. What we call it a lollipop walk. When I really was in pretty good shape, we'd start at the top at Pinebrook and walk all the way down to the loop and come back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm still working on that. I haven't been able to do that yet in 2025.
So in our whole park system, everything that we do have going on, which is really, you said it's a fantastic park system between the 3 municipalities and the 2 school districts as well. But we also have a ton of opportunity. If you could pick something that was your dream to add in as an asset for our parks and open space, what would you want to add?
Well, I got to call out the pickleball court because I think that is the number one ask. Maybe another pool, maybe something like a pool, maybe these new courts. But I'd really my big dream is that there is a major trail that connects the Appalachian Trail to our trails. And this morning I was driving around looking at, the backside of East Stroudsburg, where it goes along the Broadhead Creek, and on the other side is, over to Delaware Water Gap. Mm-hmm. And I'm in Delaware Water Gap a lot. I go to church down there. And that has always been my big thing, is how do we get the AT connected to East Stroudsburg and Stroudsburg. There is the old trolley track that I used to mountain bike all the time when I'd work. I used to live in Water Gap and mountain bike to Stroudsburg to work as a young lawyer on the weekends. So I'd really love to see that and other trail extensions. Maybe we can figure out a way to get over to the Minnesink area and work with Smithfield Township on expanding trails that way. We're in our infancy in doing all that, and I see a lot of other projects in the future. I've been talking to ESYA, and they're used to the fields in Smithfield Township, and we worked on that when I was a young lawyer, helping ESYA do the paperwork with Judge Williamson, and getting grants at the state, and to see 25 years has expired. Back when you're that age and you see a 25-year lease, like, you think that's forever.
Yeah.
And now to see 25-year leases going through renewals, and that's where I see these things need to keep figuring out ways to expand them, to connect them, to see where our next opportunities are. I just found out that there's trails from J.T. Lambert in and around down to Gregory Pond. I never knew that even existed. So,
yeah, and you mentioned going up to Delaware Water Gap, and we have in both the trail gap analysis and in the Eastern Monroe Active Transportation Plan, there is a potential pathway laid out in there to make it happen. So those plans are in place, and it's finding the right grant to make it happen and finding the right team of people who are ready to push it through.
Yep, this was all dream in Monroe 2020. And I remember, Janet Wadensaw, my girlfriend's mother. Yeah, I talked to her often, and she was so a big a proponent for Monroe 2020 and putting all these trail systems together. And again, the Levee Loop was a dream. When I was in a legislator, the Levee Loop was a dream. And I saw it years later, work, and I'm like, wow, this is great. And so things can happen, and if we can put these institutional systems in place, then things can grow, and we find the next generation that's interested in these things to help carry the water. And we've got, like I said, we got a great state delegation to get grants for us. So I'm real interested in the AT connection and also seeing how far north we can go and see if we can't go up the Broadhead Creek, in some way, shape, or form, or some other valleys to get up to Canadensis or wherever Mount Pocono, wherever we're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you see those literal connections between the trails playing a role in just the overall sense of community for East Stroudsburg?
Well, I do know that when I first started writing and posting about the Levee Loop, that a lot of people in East Stroudsburg had never heard of the Levee Loop. And I thought, wow, I thought everybody knew about the Levee Loop. And to this day, when I do posts about the Levee Loop, almost every time I make a post, someone says, where is it? So I think, we can't stop marketing it, even locally and definitely externally, because I don't know if we really market it as well as we can to everyone coming into the area. Because if they come and walk in the Levee Loop, then they might roll out and use some of our restaurants and other types of facilities. I got off topic, but
that sense of community, though, that the Levee Loop brings and the whole trail system brings to us.
So I think that's when I think of East Stroudsburg sports and what I hope to try and accomplish by rebuilding relationships between all the different sports organizations. It also ties right into our parks and recs, because you've got fields and other things that the sports needs, and figuring out programs that to drive engagement with young people that are going to our schools and with their parents and grandparents and relatives on getting their engagement. Because I really don't see a lot of kids walking on the Levee Loop with their families. That's one thing I do notice. Lots of people walking their dogs, which is great. But more families involved in the Levee Loop, more families involved in the park systems. And we do have a lot of transitional people that come and work for a job for a couple of years and rent in East Stroudsburg and maybe move on. So maybe they don't know. So we just have to get them engaged, and maybe they stay. So
yeah, the Levee Loop is part of why I'm here, for sure.
Nice.
It's a huge asset for the community. The whole park system is. So, what advice would you give to a younger resident or a local leader who would like to help improve the community, whether it's through the parks or some other service?
So when I was younger than my 20s, and when I was in politics, and people would ask me that same kind of question, I always would say, run a golf tournament. Get involved in a charity and run a golf tournament, because back then there were lots of golf tournaments, and you learn so much running a golf tournament, getting involved in an event, on how to raise money for it, on how to get people to sign up to golf, how to set up the day of activities. And I would definitely encourage young people, and I know we're doing a good job with the issue and getting the football team involved in the beautification day, is get involved in giving back and get involved in running it, and you'll learn so many skills doing that. And that's what I mean, we need so many volunteers. The people don't volunteer like the post-World War. And I remember when I was a kid, there were so many people running things for us. And I don't see that as much. And I hope that we can get that back with a lot of people volunteering in town to help kids. And that's what I hope with East Stroudsburg Sports happens next week, is figuring out some strategies to get volunteer engagement. And I think there's so much reward in that. And people fall in love with their hometown.
So we talk about dreams, we talk about what was going on 25 years ago, 50 years ago. Think about 25 years in the future, so 2050. What do you want to be able to say about our park system and our community and our open space in 25 years?
Well, one, I hope that Dansbury Park's still here, and I hope there's still a cool pool, and maybe it doesn't leak as much. Or have electrical burnout on the hottest day of the year. So we got to work on those infrastructure things. But I hope we have a cool pool. I hope we have great playground equipment. I really hope the park system's bigger and has all those interconnections with the AT and other things like that. I hope it's a major component of the Pocono Mountain Visitors Bureau, and come out and enjoy these amazing recreation activities that we have. And I hope the people we get involved in the next couple of years are running things in 25 years and enjoying it as much as I do. And their kids are involved, and they come back and raise their family, here in the Poconos. And I always joke at the Borough that so many people from Stroudsburg work at East Stroudsburg because East Stroudsburg's got its game on. So. But I think more than half of my workforce is from Stroudsburg. But the nice thing we have back and forth between the twin boroughs. Oh, I also forgot to mention we have our Twin Boroughs Recycling Center, working with Stroudsburg on that. And that works out really great. And we both are trying to figure out how to increase recycling in our boroughs. But I hope there's a lot more cooperation like that. It's very unique in the state. You don't see this happening in other places. And our regional police was the first big one, and then the Pocono, or Mount Pocono Regional Police. So we're trendsetters, and I hope we keep being trendsetters and figuring out some things that we don't know. Like Frisbee, Frisbee existed down at that along the river, when you were skipping school and playing Frisbee. But now it's like a ultimate Frisbee. My brother was one of the great ultimate Frisbee players in his day. And now they have the Frisbee golf.
Yeah, the big disc golf courses too.
So that didn't exist, Frisbees existed, but not for that type of thing. So I don't know what's going to be there. In 25 years, there's going to be a new sport that we don't know about, and I'm anxious to see what that is. Even though I'm old, I do love the new technologies and stuff, and the Chat GPT and all that kind of thing. So I'm anxious to see where all that goes and what kids are going to like in the future. I hope East Stroudsburg Little League is still there in 25 years, and it's got a real cool field. I hope ESU has great sports. Jimmy Terwilliger will still be the football coach, following up Denny Dowds of being there for 30-some years. So he's got a great legacy, and other coaches at ESU. Our field hockey team's so good. So I hope we could develop youth programs and high school teams where kids get those great experiences and can play sports in college. So
is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your growing up here in East Stroudsburg, your experience in the parks, anything like that?
Maybe I chatted too much already or babbled, but I really appreciate what you do here and all your team. The other thing, we didn't have this kind of group running. We had somebody running a pool pretty much in the summers, and there was a Dansbury Park committee that worked for the borough, but nothing like this. And a separate building and programs and other things like that. So this is all in its infancy, so I can't wait to see where it goes. I look forward to getting some big grants, getting some big home runs, and seeing what we can pull off in the next couple of years. Definitely I think, parking and, parking is a big thing, because if you have good parking and it's easy access, humans like to then come and go do things. If parking is inconvenient, humans aren't too happy.
Yeah, give them a place to come in, put their car, and then give them all the connections so they can walk all around town.
I used to do consulting, for my years after politics, and my big thing was, how do you push the easy button? You got to make things really easy. And if we can make things easy to use our parks and recs, easy to use our downtown, easy to work in the borough, I think things are going to work really, really well. And if it's hard, humans will drive right by. So we got to figure out ways to capture engagement. I'm excited. I've been excited since I started here. Now I know a little bit more that I've been here a few months. The first couple of months were pretty amazing. And there's so many people really anxious to help. I do see that. I think they're just, looking for ways to pull it all together. And if I can help do that, I love to pull groups together and try to figure out how to do cool things. So if we can pull that off, I think we're going to have some fun times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for the Parkside Podcast, Voices of Our Landscape. Today's episode is part of Monroe County's local effort to celebrate America250, and we hope it inspired you to enjoy and support the incredible public spaces all around us. Don't forget, you can be part of the celebration by taking on the 250 for 250 challenge. Whether you walk, bike, paddle, or hike, every mile you log in Monroe County's parks brings us closer together as a community. For more information, park maps, and upcoming programs, visit stroudrec.org, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Parkside Podcast. Until next time, go outside and play.